Yippee, wahoo, good Star Wars content. Kind of. Yeah, I had higher hopes for this season of The Mandalorian as I did with Clone Wars Season 7, which, both aren't bad, but both seasons have one major issue I have a problem with. I mean, they both have a couple of minor issues as well, but that one major one, it's hella distracting sometimes. I'm of course talking about how incredibly overcrowded this season was. From what I could gather, a lot of other people had this issue, and yeah, it does kind of take me out of the story a bit. So what is this overcrowding complaint? Well, we have this new Star Wars series involving new characters, but at the same time, it is stuffed with characters from older TV shows and movies. And this isn't just blatant fan service, but it also kind of tampers with the new characters. Because the old characters are getting screen time in a series that shouldn't be about them, I start to not give a shit about the new characters that are introduced in The Mandalorian. You know why? Because they're not given enough screen time. I mean, I like Mando and Grogu, but I do not give a single fuck about characters like Cara Dune and Greef. They kind of developed Cara more this season, not so much Greef. Greef is rarely in this season. I guess he was given more spotlight in the first one, but even then he was just a watered down Lando. The charismatic black guy betrays everyone, then redeems himself. But I would argue that Lando is a much better character. Back to Cara though, she's still kind of boring. Her connection to Alderaan was just kind of shoehorned in this season, and that's mostly due to older characters getting more screen time. All I know is that all of her friends and family are dead, and that's about it. I will admit though that season 2 really upgraded Mayfeld's character, aka Bill Burr. He was without a doubt the most interesting and relatable secondary character coming from the new cast, which doesn't say much, but I still like him a lot. That cafeteria scene with the Imperial officer was top tier. Great acting, great cinematography. I feel like this scene is very heavily influenced by Inglourious Basterds, which is probably another reason why I like it. When it comes to Mando and Grogu, I like them a lot. I think the relationship is a lot stronger this season. People say the second episode is pretty pointless with the frog people. In terms of story, kind of, but in terms of character, I thought it was a great way to show Mando that he's developed an attachment to the child and he has to realize that. And their last scene together was done beautifully. I also like how interesting Mando is this season because last one he was kind of just okay. His best scenes are with Mayfeld, who questions his traditions, and this leads him to develop and say, you know what, maybe some of these traditions don't work out and I need to do what's necessary. But what about the other characters? There's also Fennec. Guess she's alright. I actually preferred the two characters that were part of the main group that died last season. I even felt that IG-11 was more interesting, and he's a droid. So overall, the new characters are kinda meh, but what about the old characters that returned to the series? Let's start with Boba Fett, because he's easily the best thing that came out of season 2. I've always preferred Jango over Boba, but this might have tipped the scale. And even though he wasn't in the season for that long, he was amazing in it. Every single scene he was in was great. No, except for this one, where Bo-Katan just basically insults Boba for no reason. And then we get a little skirmish between Boba and Bo-Katan's lackey, whose name I don't remember, and this scene really pissed me off. How are you gonna have a fucking nobody actually put up a fight against Boba Fett? I know why they did it. Kathleen Kennedy had to sneak in something in there for her forces female propaganda. I'm not being anti-female or anything. If Bo-Katan fought in the place of her sidekick and she put up someone up a fight, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Even if the sidekick was a white male, it would still be an issue. You just don't have a nobody beat up a legend. Other than that, loved every Boba scene. Speaking of Beau, I kind of hate her. Whether she's in Clone Wars or Rebels or this show, she's always come off as snobby, stuck up, and a bit hypocritical. She has very few likable traits. She just believes she's entitled to everything, and insulting Boba the way she did certainly didn't help how I feel about the character. I feel like the few people who actually like her only like her because she's a recurring character and nothing else. There's also Ahsoka, and as much as I love the character, she did not need to be in this season at all. Her placement in here is mostly fan service, which is funny because her episode is one of my favorites of this season. See, when you add too many characters like Ahsoka who really have no reason to be in the season, it just makes the Star Wars universe look small. I know Boba was promoting his TV show in The Mandalorian, but the difference is he was actually significant towards the plot. And his presence is actually good fan service because we haven't seen him in 40 years, and we just saw Ahsoka, so she just didn't have to be in here. There's Luke, and even though he is pretty integral to the plot, but for some reason his appearance still felt like fan service, especially when R2-D2 rolled in. It's like, we didn't need to see that. Is it nice? Kind of, but when they pull moves like that, including characters who don't need to be in The Mandalorian Season 2, it just feels kind of cheap. I guarantee you most people are probably more invested in R2-D2's 1-minute cameo than they are in Cara Dune's entire character. And that's because these characters like R2-D2 have been involved in Star Wars for decades. So of course a 1-minute cameo is going to overshadow any new characters from this series. So that was my main problem with The Mandalorian Season 2. The other issues I have are pretty minor. Sometimes when I watch this show, it feels fan-made. There are times when it looks amazing, and there are times when it feels really cheap. Some of the aliens have bad lip syncing, just like in The Phantom Menace. That sacred Jedi planet or whatever just looks like the middle of Arizona. But yeah, those are my issues. I actually prefer Season 2 over Season 1. I feel like they did a fantastic job overall. There's more world building in terms of the amount of planets they visit and the creatures they encounter. I found the plot to be more interesting. I do wish Moff Gideon did a bit more, but it's obvious he'll have a role in Season 3. Overall, I feel like this is great new Star Wars content. I can't wait to see more.